So welcome to the Vitelity 101 webinar. Today we're going to be talking about fax and why fax is a problem, how to solve the fax problems, and the Vitelity solutions for fax. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to use the chat box and we'll see what we can do about answering the questions as we go along, or we may hold some of them for the end. So what we will be addressing is our solution for faxing, whether some of you are doing fax on PBXs, some are doing standalone, but we're going to try and address all of that. So as we go along, hopefully we'll answer most of your questions. I'm Kerry Garrison. I'm the VP of Strategic Initiatives here. I've been running these webinars. This is our second one. We're going to be doing these every month to help bring you up to speed on what we're doing here at Vitelity and how to use the different products and services that we have. The core thing we're going to discuss today is why faxing, why is this not going away, why T38 doesn't solve the fax problems, and how to use our products and services to get around the fax problems that are out there. So first off, let me ask, can everyone hear me good? Just a couple people just put in the chat whether the audio quality is good on the call and that the slides are working. Awesome, great, good to hear from you. Whoa, okay, that's a lot. Great. So let's start with why fax isn't going away. And the main reason is it's fairly reliable for the most part. I mean, it's based on very old technology. It hasn't changed in many years, so it works pretty well, and it works well enough. And faxes are actually acceptable in court, where a printed PDF document isn't. Now, I know there really is no difference between them from a technical point of view, but that's just the way some of the courts are today. And so we have to deal with faxing. Faxing is still required by many vertical markets. Legal offices rely heavily on faxes. Real estate, they do a lot of contracts. You can't buy a car without tons of documents being sent over fax machines. In fact, almost anywhere contracts are signed on a regular basis, you will still see a real heavy dependence on faxing. So while we want to move towards scan and email or scan and forward, different technologies, fax just isn't going away anytime soon. And if you've been installing IP PBXs and you're trying to get away from analog phone lines and do faxing over IP, you're bound to have run into problems with faxing. So hopefully we're going to solve some of those issues that you've had with the products that we have here at Vitelity. So why is fax even a problem? Well, fax requires a real-time, uninterrupted communication between both ends. So over the PSTN network, it works pretty well because call quality is generally very good. Whether you're on analog phone lines or you're on PRIs, that call quality is a given. It just works. When you start going over VoIP or even IP, you get a lot of failures because it's very susceptible to any latency or jitter. If there's a packet loss of a fax transmission, that fax is going to fail. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It's very, very little problems on the line can cause serious problems with the fax transmission. So faxing over IP has always been a problem. Now, we've tried to solve some of this in the past by hooking up an analog telephone adapter and trying to convert it from digital to analog or analog to digital and going both ways, and you're adding problems on top of it. You're adding layers on top of a problem that already has issues. Now, sometimes it's the sending fax, sometimes the receiving fax, sometimes you have these communication issues where the timing is off, and when that's off over VoIP, it just makes the matter that much worse. So T38 was going to be the saving grace of faxing. It was designed to send raw data. And there is some failback, some different protocols it uses to to kind of tone it down. I have more information on this on the Vitelity website. There's a blog post about it. But what you'll find is there are a lot of inconsistencies when using T38. Well, first off, there's almost no fax machines that you can buy today that have built-in support for T38. So you're always having to do some kind of translation somewhere, and the calls start as analog, they try and negotiate, and then switch over to T38. So if you have problems along that path, it may not switch to T38, the transition might not go smooth, it may never switch at all, and so even though T38 is there, it still may not work, and unless we changed the entire infrastructure of faxing throughout the world, we can't really use T38 to its advantage because it's still missing so much of that infrastructure. So T38 over VoIP still suffers from packet loss and jitter due to UDP protocol. Now, again, it was designed to try and correct some of this, but T38 is not implemented the same by all systems. So unless you have basically the same system on both ends, T38 is probably not going to be a 100% solution. If you have the exact same hardware on both sides, it may work well. Now, there's some voice carriers out there that offer T38, so it comes into their data center, usually over the TDM. They translate it to T38 and then push it down to you over T38. Now, do you have the right equipment that's going to talk well to their system? And once you get that worked out, maybe you'll have some pretty successful fax interoperability with them. But again, we want to try and make it easy. We want to make it simple. We want to be able to find solutions that will work across the board for as many people as possible, as easily as possible. So that's where Vitelity Vfax came in. Now, Vitelity Vfax is a typical cloud-based fax service. There's web and desktop send and receive. There's email send and receive, and that gives you archiving of the sent and received messages. It's $2.99 a month for the DID and 3 cents a minute. You're going to average 5 to 6 pages a minute, so you can kind of calculate that. Generally speaking, Vfax is going to be a pretty big cost savings over using an analog phone line. Now, it's pretty simple to use. I'm actually going to switch over to a different screen here so I can give you a little demo of how that works. If I can get things to work right today. Let's see here, share. Okay, hopefully you're seeing my screen. Let me bounce back over here. You guys see my screen now? Let me try switching it. Okay, it's just the gray screen. Okay, that's it. There we go. So here's our user portal for Vfax. Once you log in, there's a Vfax tab at the top, and we see what our pricing is, any messages that have been in here, information on how to send faxes, setting up accounts. We do offer branding on the Vfax using viewmyfax.com, which is a kind of unlabeled service for that, and we can put your logo on there for a small fee. And you can send and receive faxes via email and from a Vfax desktop software that we have. I can look at my Vfax DIDs, see how many messages are there. view faxes. I can order a fax enable device. We'll get to that in a minute. Set the fax to email address. Sending a fax right from the portal. Again, if you're doing this for a customer, you're probably going to send them to viewmyfax.com so they don't have to go through the user portal. They can just go directly to basically a scaled down version of this that is much easier to use. So I can do document to fax, see my fax status, view my different VFAX accounts that I have set up. I can port numbers over. We're getting a couple reports of some choppy audio. Hopefully that will improve here. Again, got a couple issues with any meeting with some choppy audio once in a while. It usually clears up after a few seconds. Hopefully it will kind of hang in there with us. Okay, so I think it's good for most people from what I'm hearing. So this is our VFAX portal. Again, like I said, we have viewmyfax.com to use for your customers so they don't have to be in here. Let me get back to my slides. So our VFAX, there's no activation fees. We have nationwide coverage. You can port your existing fax number over or choose a new one. And a lot of people are asking about HIPAA compliance. And HIPAA compliance is a really interesting issue that you might have to deal with when you're dealing with healthcare. Now, the biggest issue with HIPAA is that you can't do any faxing over email. You can't do fax to email or email to fax. If you are using the web portal for doing your sending and receiving, that's being done over HTTPS, therefore things are pretty good. If you use our desktop client, it's using HTTPS, so again, things are encrypted. If you use our fax enable device, it's going from your fax machine through our device over an encrypted connection. So again, we are in pretty good shape there. So we do have differing levels of HIPAA compliance so long as you do not have email turned on for receiving or sending those faxes. Again, private label VFAX, you can do it through our portal. You also have the ability to use our VFAX through our API. Now, next month, we're going to talk about using our API. We'll go through some of the API commands. I can show you some sample code on how to send and receive faxes using our API. So if you want to automate some of that, it's pretty easy to do with our API. Now let's talk about FAX Enable. This is a new product for us. If you caught the video at the beginning, it mentioned a price of $199. We have been reducing that price over the last few months. We're now at $109 for the device. And this plugs into a regular fax machine. So it's kind of like an ATA, but instead of converting to analog, or analog to digital, it's going analog to an encrypted transmission into our data center. When you receive the device, you simply plug it into your fax machine, plug it into your network, and it's ready to go. The users of that fax machine do not need to learn anything different. So that's a very important thing when you're dealing with the legal offices or real estate offices who don't want any learning curve. It's a small adapter, works really well. The one real key advantage to it is there's no inbound busy signals. So if you're sending or receiving faxes from your fax machine, new inbound faxes are being stored in the data center, and they'll be pushed out to you as your fax machine becomes available. Now you also get the fax archiving that is part of VFAX. So all those send and receive faxes are going to still be in your portal. So that's another advantage of combining FAX Enable with our VFAX product. And again, it's a secure transmission over HTTPS. We have two purchase options for FAX Enable. The first is the one-time cost, which includes shipping, of $109, and then the VFAX fees of $3 a month for the DID, or $2.99 a month for the DID, and 3 cents a minute for the faxing. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be launching a subscription service. So it'll be $35 setup and $24.95 a month for unlimited faxing. That includes the FAX Enable device. So if you're looking at your typical customers out there who are spending $50 to $60 a month for an analog phone line, you can put them on a FAX Enable device, have extremely good reliability, as good as or better than what they're getting today, for half of the cost of what they're paying for that analog phone line. So if you can't sell that to a customer as a cost savings, then we've all done something wrong. For $25 a month versus $50 to $60 a month for their analog phone line, it's a real easy win. So let me take a look at some of the questions that are coming in here. Is the fax result shown on the fax machine in real time? Meaning, if the fax machine shows success complete, did the other end get it right then, or is it store and forward? Thanks, Chip. The answer to that is it is a store and forward. So the fax comes from your fax machine or from VFAX into the data center, and then it's forwarded out. So what we are working on is some back end for that so that we will get better notifications when it's received by the end, and then can push that back. So that's coming soon. Fax failures are, again, something that we're working on to make sure that those failure notifications are coming back all the way properly. So it's something that's improving here very shortly. Jim is asking, does the adapter provide dial tone for machines needing to detect it before sending? Yes, absolutely. When the FAX Enable device acts as an analog phone line for the fax machine. So as soon as the fax machine, picks up the line, there is dial tone there. So it's completely completely seamless to the users, and it's completely seamless to the fax machine on how that works. So just let me refresh this a little bit. Some people said I cut out a little bit during FAX Enable. I'll actually go back here. So FAX Enable is a device. It goes in between your network and your fax machine. So coming from the fax machine, you take the line into the line port on the FAX Enable device, and then from the network port into your Ethernet network, and it will provide the dial tone to the fax machine. When you send a fax, it goes to the FAX Enable device, up to our data center, and then out through our fax portal. Today, these devices are a single port device. They come with 2 ports. We have not enabled the second port. That is a feature that we are working on, figuring out how we will add the provisioning into the portal to support the second port. So hopefully that will come over the next, we're hoping about 6 weeks, when we'll have the second port available. Let's see. Mark is asking, for the second option, the device is included or another fee on top of the $35. Now, on the second option here, for the $35 setup and $24.95 a month, that includes the device. So now that, I believe that's like a 6-month contract or something. Then after that, before that, if you cancel, we'll prorate the device. After that, then you can keep the device. Okay, questions are coming in awfully fast here. Let me see if I can stay on top of them. Will we ever be able to port an existing fax DID directly to FAX Enable? Currently, we have to order using a temporary fax number and then open a support ticket to reconfigure the device when the porting is complete. Yeah, Ed, that's an issue that we're working on. I've seen that happen a couple times. So that's part of our portal that we need to work on so that when that port comes in, it will go directly to it. Today, the process is order a fax DID, order the fax enable device, and then open a ticket so we can switch it over. I know that's kind of a pain sometimes, but if you get everything set up first with your DID and then add the fax enable device later, it's much smoother. See, Rob is asking, can you block certain area code states and numbers from sending you faxes? Today, there is no blacklist feature in the faxing. That would have to be something that we would put into a feature request if a lot of people were asking for that. Robert's asking about wholesale rates. So any of you that are looking at the second option here from a wholesale rate, it's something that we have looked at and we have a plan for. So you'll want to contact your account manager. So either, whether you work with Scott or Maya or Justin or Danette, whoever you work with, talk to your account manager, and as soon as this is available, then they can give you some idea of what the different wholesale rates are for that. Again, the contract on the subscription is probably going to be about 6 months, and then after that, it'll just go month to month. So Sean is asking, what is the difference between VFAX and FAX Enable? Okay, good question. Let me try and clarify that for everybody again. VFAX is our cloud-based fax product. You have faxing through the web interface or through a desktop client. FAX Enable is a device connected to a fax machine that allows that fax machine to utilize the VFAX services. So FAX Enable is an add-on to VFAX. Hopefully that explains it. Jacob, what type of management do you have over the FAX Enable device? There really isn't any. I mean, it's a plug-and-play device. If you need to log into it to manually set an IP address or something, for example, I mean, you can do that. So you can log into the device. We can help you with that if there's something that you need to do. But generally, we don't want any changes to the device because it really just works. The only thing you might need to do is if you really need to hard set that device in case of, your firewall settings. Okay, Jim is asking, is it a one-to-one only, or is there an option to put it in front of a multi-tech modem adapter to a PC running HIPAA and receive inbound routing information such as DNS and route the fax direct to a user so a line can be shared? Okay, so to summarize Jim's question, he's asking about putting FAX Enable in front of a fax server that has multiple lines to it. So today, that's possible, but it's not very cost-effective. And because today you would need one device for each one of those lines. Now, while that's possible, it's really, like I said, it's not really cost-effective. What we are working on, and I hope to have done here in the next probably, I'm hoping less than 90 days, is a multi-port device specifically for doing this type of application. So Jim, while you can do this today one at a time, it's really not designed for use with a fax server. As we move into these multi-port devices, really, hopefully that will be exactly what you need for that type of product. Does the device support VLANs? Yes, it does. It's a good net device. It's provided by audio codes, So if you've ever used any of the higher end audio codes, ATAs, it's configured pretty much exactly the same way. It just has custom firmware on it for handling the fax software. If I use the VFAX API, can the faxing go over the HTTPS encrypted connection? Yes, our VFAX API does work over regular unencrypted port 80, or you can do it over encrypted port 443. So yes, you can do faxing via the API over an encrypted connection. Marty's asking, will it eventually work for international faxes? I don't know. That's an issue that we're having. We are working on that with our fax backend, and hopefully we'll be able to do more international stuff in the near future. Aaron, if you have a FAX-enabled DID, can you also log into the VFAX interface? The answer is yes. In fact, you start with the FAX-enable or the VFAX interface, and you add a FAX-enable device to it. So you have the VFAX interface, and you have the FAX-enable added onto it. So, can VFAX have an international DID? The answer today is no. So, and let me take that a step further. Okay, what some people have done is taken international DIDs and did call forwarding to their VFAX number. This does not work well at all. The port forwarding will lose something in the translation. Very, very few people have had that work properly. The only way to do that is to actually have the numbers ported into the VFAX platform, and today we do not support international on the faxing. Casey's asking, what is the projected cost of the new multi-port device? My answer is I don't know. We're looking at several different devices, and we haven't decided which one we're going to move forward with. There's a 4-port, an 8-port, a 24-port, and until we get some more feedback from people as to what size is going to be kind of the average, then we haven't really made that final determination of which we're going to use. Can you set up multiple user accounts to access the VFAX portal? Well, okay, so that's kind of a yes and no question there, AJ. From the Vitelity portal, you can create multiple VFAX logins, and those logins will be used on viewmyfax.com. Now, what you can't do is have multiple users access the same account. So if I have, let's make it simple, I have 2 VFAX numbers, I can set up an account for each one of those. So if I'm selling fax services to customers, then I can give each one of them access to their own DID information, their own faxing. But I cannot have multiple user accounts assigned to the same DID. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay, Jacob's asking, how does the device register to the network and obtain a TN assignment, and is that pre-programmed? Okay, so from a technical level on this, I can explain this pretty well. When the device ships out from Vitelity, we have pre-provisioned it to the DID. When you go to order the fax-enabled device, you select which fax DID you want it to be associated with. So when that device leaves our office, it's ready to plug in. As soon as you get the device and you plug it into your network, it will grab an IP address from your DHCP server and immediately try and connect to us. And now, in most cases, most networks are set up so that port 443 is open for web browsing. Since the device communicates over port 443, it should have no problem connecting to us. Now, if you have more strict firewall rules, then you'll have to deal with that and open the ports and do some things. Generally speaking, it is a plug-and-play device. So as soon as it connects, it takes approximately a minute to 2 minutes from the time that you power it on to the time that it's ready to send fax. So it's pretty quick during its boot up process, and it's up and ready to go. Blake is asking if this service is affiliated with FaxBox or is this unique service to Vitelity. I like the guys over at FaxBox, and I used to use that product all the time. It was a lot more expensive. You had a couple $100 setup fee plus $35, $40 a month. So that was not one of the, it was an option that we looked at to offer, but it is not the solution that we went with. So it is not in any way affiliated with FaxBox. Is it unique service to Vitelity? Well, yeah, it's built on top of our existing VFAX service. Now, we've partnered with audio codes on the device, and we have other fax partners that help on the back end. So I would say it is a pretty unique service to Vitelity in the way that we've implemented it. Casey is asking, does the API give fax status? Well, you know what? I'm going to try and bounce over here real quick and try to share that monitor again. Okay, are you seeing my my web browser again? Okay, so if you check this out, and this is open to anybody. If you go to apihelp.vitelity.net, this is our complete API documentation, and we're going to be talking about this more in next month's webinar. But here's all the fax APIs. So there's sending fax, get fax, sent fax status. So you can get a list of the information on a particular fax transaction that has gone out. So you can see the success, the source, the destination. So hopefully that can, if you look at the API help right now, you can kind of see how that all works. Let's get back over here. Let's get back to the questions here. Let me try and figure out where I was here. Is a fax-enabled device the same as my Grandstream HandyTone 502 that I'm now using as an ATA device with Vitelity VoIP? No, it is not. It is an audio codes MP202B HTTPS with custom firmware on it. So it's similar to an ATA. It's actually based on an ATA, but instead of doing digital VoIP to analog signal, it's doing the analog signal from the fax machine into an HTTPS stream. So it is a very, very specific device with custom firmware on it. The charge is on both inbound and outbound. That's the 3 cents a minute. Would it be possible to have 2 incoming DIDs routed to the same device? No, not today, Jim. Today, it's 1 DID per device. But if you need the ability to receive faxes for schools or things that are not yet open, just use the VFAX interface instead of the device, and they will be sitting there in the interface as a PDF, and you can have those pulled down via email. How does porting affect the pre-provisioning on the device? Well, I kind of touched on this earlier. The best way of dealing with number porting with the FAX Enable device is to do your porting first. As soon as your number is in the VFAX interface, then order the device so that it's based on the number that you have. If you do that, if you don't do it in that order and you use a temporary VFAX number while your other number is being ported, then you just need to open up a trouble ticket to have that switched over. So any of the guys in support, you open up a support ticket, ask them to provision it to another number, and they can switch that over to you. Can a fax be emailed and go to the FAX Enable device at the same time? Yes. If you have an email address listed, it will go to the email address as well as the fax machine. For HIPAA compliance, you would remove the email address so that it's not going out over email. Okay, someone would like to see the first slide again. Which slide would you like to see? How do we seamlessly port a fax number and get a fax enabled up and running without downtime? Well, the best way would be to use a temporary VFAX number, order the device, and while the number is being ported, you will have fax to email, and then as soon as the number port comes in, we just have to try and be on top of it to make sure that it works. It's hard to be seamless, but you know, we do the best we can. Sean is asking, does FAX Enable device do any wireless? No. There's no wireless built into the device. Any data on average usage? I'm working on it. I can tell you that the average across our platform is it's 9.45 minutes a day. On average 5 days a week. So now that's an average. I mean, we have people that are doing 1,800 minutes a day. So if you remove the top 5 customers out of our fax, our average drops to something like 5 minutes a day. What are the turnaround times when opening a support ticket to have the FAX Enable device reconfigured with the DID that's just been ported? Generally an hour. 2 hours at the most, generally. It's very quick. The support guys have a tool to do it, so as soon as they get to your ticket, it's instantaneous for them to do it. So generally, you're not leaving your customer without any fax machine services if things are going well. Canadian questions, a couple of questions about Canadian DIDs. You know what, I'm going to have to ask you to call your account manager so that we can get you accurate information on that. I'm not sure how we classify Canadian DIDs as whether they work with VFAX or not. The average I just said is a combined inbound and outbound. I don't have a report that shows any more than that. So that's just an average that I've seen. Now, some of you are asking for the slide deck and for some screenshots here. As soon as we finish this, this has been recorded, so I will put this online just as soon as I can. It does take a couple hours to process so that it's ready to go, and then we will put this up online on our YouTube channel. We'll post a link to it on our blog, vitelity.com/blog, so that if you want to refer back to it, you can. And hopefully we have answered as many questions as we can for you on our fax platform with VFAX and FAX Enable. Really appreciate all the fantastic questions you guys have sent over. I mean, it really helps to give everyone as much information as possible. Next month, July 17th, we're going to do a webinar on building applications with the Vitelity API. And I'll show you some code to get you started. We'll talk about SMS and creating accounts and faxing and some of the other things that you can do with the Vitelity API. We'll have some examples of some applications that customers have done with our APIs. And certainly, if you're on this call right now and you've done something really cool with the API, let us know. You know, maybe we can feature your product or service that you've done using the Vitelity API. We're really interested to see what people are doing it. A few people are asking for invitations. Everyone who is on here will receive an invite as soon as we post the new webinar online. It'll probably be in the next day that I'll get that up and running, so you guys can all be invited to it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys can do with the products and services. Hopefully these webinars are informative for you and that they're helping you to learn what you can do with the Vitelity services here. Let's see, Mark says he used the API on our website for customers to find available DIDs in their area. Well, that's really cool. That's super cool. You know, so they're ordering their service from you and they're finding the DIDs in their area based on your own website. That's super cool. Tim says you just came in at the end. This has been recorded. It will be online very soon, probably within the next couple hours. It takes a couple hours for it to process and then render and get uploaded and stuff. So I will post a link to the video on vitelity.com/blog just as soon as it's possible. So Mike, hey, thanks for letting us know what you've done with the API. If anyone else has done some stuff, please let us know. Thanks again for coming. I'm going to shut things down now, and we will see you all next month. Thanks so much for joining. Bye-bye.